what's up, y'all? What's up? So this is a quick, really quick rebuttal video to Crystal Nicole, and Crystal Nicole and I were going back and forth in some chat, and I'm simply just trying to prove that Nicki Minaj and her husband were properly served, right? And I'm also going to offer some theories as to why Nicki Minaj was able to wiggle out of her proof of service and her default judgment. And essentially, I want to make sure that everyone knows that this is not a bashing video towards Crystal Nicole. This is not a hate video to Crystal Nicole. I think that it's okay for people to disagree, and I think that so long as you're being respectful, and you're being intelligent, and you're doing it in a respectful manner, and that's what I'm doing here, right? So I don't have any hate towards Crystal Nicole. I don't have any malice towards her, anything, right? We just simply disagree, and we're just basically going back and forth debating it. And hopefully, I'm going to go through this document to shed some light as to what's going on here. Now, you can clearly see that this document says proof of service, and this summons is for Kenneth Petty, aka Zoo, and someone checked the box and say that they personally serve the summons to an individual, right? Kenneth Petty, right? And then it shows the process server, Robert Diaz. Now, one thing about these people, and it tells you what he actually served, right? He serves a summons, a jury's demand, and he serves the exhibits, right? And he also gives a description of the man that he served these documents to, right? And it gives, Robert Diaz's address and his phone number, so on and so forth. Now, here's the thing. Here is the thing. Robert Diaz, to me, appears to be a process server. These people, they take oaths. And when they take oaths, they are basically bound to tell the truth. So nobody's going to lie about this, right? Prosecutors and judges, they can sometimes get away with a lot of stuff because they are in a position of power. But a processor really isn't in any position of power. If he outright lies and then he's brought to court under oath and it's found that he's lying, not only is he going to lose his job, he's also going to lose his freedom, right? So these people generally just don't lie, right? At least they don't lie about stuff like this, because this is pretty serious stuff, right? So when we come down to Nicki Minaj's proof of service, we see that Onika Tanya Mirage, aka Nicki Minaj, was served, right? How did he serve her? This is where it gets interesting. He left the summons at the individual's residence or usual place of abode, right? And then it says Kenneth Petty, aka Zoo, right? The husband, right? And from there, basically, you can see that the same person served this, and you can see the documents that were served were essentially the same. So here's the thing. This is why I believe that Nicki Minaj was able to wiggle out, right? First, let me say this. If a court cannot prove, or if litigants cannot prove that the other party was served to initiate the starting of the case, then the court won't have jurisdiction. And if the court don't have jurisdiction, then the court won't have the ability to enter a judgment, right? Now, there's different types of jurisdiction. Personal jurisdiction is one. Another type of jurisdiction, or another claim to personal jurisdiction, I believe, is where you're saying you were served, but you weren't served properly, right? And when you look at this, I think what's going on here is that, and I don't remember all the details, but to me it seems like the clerk actually entered these judgments. And some courts, I think the federal courts, gives the clerk certain roles and responsibilities, and some clerks are able to actually enter basic judgments. So if a person comes to show that another person was served and that person hasn't responded, then that person is able to ask the clerk for a default judgment. There's no sense of going to the judge to ask the judge this and waste the judge's time if all of the facts are evident then there's no sense of, going to court and going before a judge to do this. The clerk can do that. So I think in federal court, they actually give this responsibility to the clerk. Now, however, if a person is claiming that they were not served, and the other person is claiming that they're served, that they actually served them, then that is something that's going to have to go before a judge because there has to be fact finding. And essentially, that's what I believe is actually happening here. I think that it looks like the first series of events went before a clerk, and now this guy is asking for a motion to reconsider for the clerk. And I could be wrong about this. It's late. I have to go back and look at all the details, but just follow me here. So if it is in fact issued by the clerk, then the plaintiffs, Jennifer Hugh, can still go before a judge and say, hey, look, judge, I served this guy already. They didn't respond. I'm going to ask that you enter a default judgment against them. And the reason I say it was by a clerk because it says a certificate of default judgment and not a actual default judgment, right? So I could be a little confused over the legal terms here, but essentially that leads me to believe that it was issued by the clerk and not the judge, right? So I think they can still go before a judge and ask for a default. Now, it gets even stickier because the judge is not going to want to make a mistake. And basically, this would all be turned, basically rejected on appeal, and it basically will come back anyway. So for that reason, most people are able to, and as a matter of fact, this is part of how the courts work. It's routine. People will routinely ignore court summons, wait for the default judgment, and then go in and have it vacated, right? So, and in this case, it's not really a judgment, it's just a certificate of default judgment. I think those are two separate things. So, long story though, you can clearly see that Nicki Minaj was serving. Let me point something else out to you. So, he gave this to Kenneth Petty, who is Nicki Minaj's husband, right? And in the state where I live in, it's well known that you can serve an individual by going to their house and giving the process of serving documents to an individual who's over a certain age, right? Maybe I think it's something like 16 to 17. If you give these documents to a person who's 16 to 17 and they reside in that house, then that person is basically deemed served. So he gave the documents to her husband and they both live in the same place, so she is deemed served. However, again, the court is going to allow her to vacate stuff like this, but that doesn't change the fact that she was actually served. And then I think the other thing that's possibly happened here is that when they asked for the default judgment, they probably didn't have all their paperwork in order. Sometimes you have to file certain things, you have to provide certain things in order to get that default judgment. And maybe that's why they're coming back now and they're asking for a reconsideration. So that's pretty much it, right? So they were served. She was served. They gave the documents to her husband. And when you serve most states, right? And this is going to apply to federal as well. When you serve a person, when you give documents to a person over 16, 17 that lives in the same exact household of the defendant that you're trying to serve, that defendant is deemed served. But again, they will allow her to vacate this. They will allow her to take this to trial, right? And I don't think that Robert is basically going to lie and say that she wasn't served. So it doesn't even matter anyway, because like I said, I read the lawsuit. I'm going to release that video fairly soon. And basically that lawsuit is pretty, in my opinion, it's a solid lawsuit for the plaintiff, Jennifer Hugh. And I think that Jennifer Hugh is definitely going to win against Kenneth Petty. And I think that she has a strong chance of winning against Nicki Minaj's. I think that Nicki I think her best bet is just to go ahead and settle this before it gets worse. That's it for this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And let me know what you think. Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think I'm off? Do you think I made a mistake? Do you think that Nicki Minaj was served? If you think she wasn't served, please tell me exactly why in the comments below. That's it. Please like, share, and subscribe.